Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Last week, the Court of Queen's Bench ruled that Federal Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act takes precedence over provincial law. Now, this means that money from the sale of a bankrupted company's assets will go first to the company's creditors instead of being used to pay for the cleanup of abandoned or orphaned wells. This will have far-reaching implications for the province's energy sector and for all Albertans. The current liability rating system is already creating headwinds, and any changes to make it even more stringent could further hurt an industry that's already suffering. To the Premier, are you considering any changes to the LLR system?
Honourable member. Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, we're working collaboratively with oil and gas industry to work at the issue with respect to the orphan wells problem, as well as the other matters that were raised by the member opposite. And we will look at, obviously, the evolving legal status as it exists and ensure that we can come up with a plan that works for everyone that takes into account the current status of the law, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for St. Albert.
Mr. Speaker?
That was only.
Did I? My apologies. Supplemental.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It sounds like I may have caught the Premier by surprise on that one, so I'll try again. The Orphan Well Association is funded by the oil patch through levies and security deposits based on well abandonment and reclamation liabilities. But their current funding only allows them to remediate barely 5% of orphan wells every year. Again to the Premier. With the number of abandoned and orphan wells expected to increase in light of this ruling, will you commit to adding more funds to the Orphan Well Association to find a solution to this economic and environmental problem?
Honourable Premier.
There's no question, Mr. Speaker, that the member opposite raises an important issue and indeed a much larger issue, which is over the last 20, 30 years, this liability has been allowed to exist and to grow. And we haven't taken action at the appropriate time to insist that the polluter pay principle be properly implemented in Alberta. So it's quite true that after 20 or 30 years, we have now a growing liability. So we're looking at ways to address it. As the member opposite knows, we have a number of financial pressures within our budget right now, and we have to address this carefully amongst those priorities. But we understand this is the outcome of many, many years of failure to act.
Thank you, Honourable Premier. Supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's easy to say it's industry's responsibility to reclaim the wells, but the fees already charged have, especially to smaller producers, had a very negative impact. Instead of penalizing companies that want to rebuild our provincial economy, we should be enabling their success, and at the same time getting highly skilled oilfield service workers off the unemployment line and back to work. Again to the Premier, will you add to the Orphan Well Fund to get Albertans with oilfield experience back to work while solving a significant environmental problem?
The Honourable Premier.
Again, Mr. Speaker, as you're aware, we know that this was an ask that was put to the federal government as part of their overall economic diversification and capital investment plan. That was an ask that was put by Saskatchewan, and we've indicated that it's worth reviewing. Again, as I say, Mr. Speaker, the liability is huge, and the question becomes whether taxpayers of today should be paying for profits that were not applied to making these fiscally and environmentally responsible decisions in the past. So it's a difficult issue to manage. We will certainly look at it. We're talking with our federal partners, and we'll consider the options that are there to balance those taxpayers' needs, along with the fact that we now have an environment.
Thank you, Honourable Premier.